The sky above Vathros Prime burned like a wound that would never heal. The planet's defense grid, once a masterpiece of Dominion engineering, now glowed red and fractured, streaks of plasma cutting through the clouds as if the heavens themselves were bleeding. In the ruins of the command fortress, Captain Liam Cross crouched behind a shattered wall, clutching a rifle that hummed weakly from an overheating power cell. He had been stranded here for 42 days. Once this world had been a jewel of the Kadar Dominion, a fortress world guarding the border between civilization and the endless dark. Now it was a graveyard. Every hour the Vraek came, silver swarms of self-replicating war machines that consumed everything organic and mechanical alike. Every hour, something else that breathed stopped breathing. Liam wasn't supposed to be here. His ship Artemis Dawn had been assigned to evacuate human technicians from a Dominion research outpost. But when the evacuation fleet was ambushed by the Vraek, only a handful of escape pods reached the surface. The others never even made it through the atmosphere. The humans who landed had been taken in by the Dominion garrison. Reluctantly. The Kadar had no love for humans. To them, humans were new, soft, unpredictable. But one of the officers had taken notice when Liam had managed to repair a broken shield generator with nothing but scrap wire and a broken drone battery. Since then, they had allowed him to work in their fortifications, patching systems, restoring weapons, doing what he did best, keeping things running just a little longer than they were meant to. And now everything was coming apart anyway. A thunderous impact shook the ground, and a massive shadow fell over the trench line. The air vibrated with a deep metallic growl. The Vraek were breaching the perimeter again. Liam risked a glance through the smoke. He saw one of the Dominion's massive war beasts, a six-legged mech with the head of a dragon, collapse under a swarm of silver drones. The machine's plasma coils exploded in a burst of light so bright it turned the world white for a heartbeat. When his vision cleared, the trench ahead was gone. "Cross!" The voice came through the smoke, deep and rough, carrying command even through chaos. Liam turned and saw him, General Thal'ren, the Kadar commander, his armor blackened and scarred, his scaled face streaked with blood. The general moved with the heavy grace of a creature born for war. His species had 4 arms, each one strong enough to tear through steel. 2 of them were gone now, ripped away in earlier battles, replaced by cybernetic limbs that sparked and hissed as he raised his weapon. "Human!" Thal'ren barked again. "The eastern wall is falling. You know the conduits. Canned. You get the pulse cannons back online?" Liam nodded automatically. "If they still have power." "Then find it," Thal'ren growled. "We hold this fortress or the Dominion dies here." The general turned back toward the front lines, firing a blast from his shoulder-mounted cannon. The beam carved through a swarm of Vraek drones, scattering them like dust. Liam sprinted toward the eastern conduit shaft, his boots slipping on ash and blood. He passed soldiers, alien and human alike, fighting shoulder to shoulder. The Kadar roared their war chants, their massive blades flashing in the firelight. Humans, smaller and quicker, darted between the giants, tossing grenades or patching wounded comrades. No one cared anymore about species or rank. There was only survival. At the base of the conduit tower, Liam dropped to his knees and pried open a maintenance panel. Sparks leapt out like angry insects. The conduits were burned through, overloaded by the last defense surge. He swore under his breath, reaching for the repair kit slung at his belt. He was elbow-deep in circuits when the ground split open beside him. A Vraek burrower, sleek and silver, like a centipede made of knives, burst from the G. Round. Its claws struck sparks off the metal floor as it lunged for him. Liam froze. Then, before the creature could strike, a blur of motion slammed into it. Thal'ren, the general, hit the Vraek like a meteor, driving his blade through the machine's torso. Blue plasma spilled out like liquid fire. The Vraek's claws caught him across the chest, ripping open his armor. Thal'ren roared and crushed the machine's head in his remaining mechanical hand. The explosion threw both of them back. Liam scrambled to his feet, coughing through the smoke. "General!" Thal'ren tried to rise, but his cybernetic limbs sparked uselessly. His breathing was ragged, blood pooling beneath him. The Vraek corpse twitched once, then went still. "Your weapons," Thal'ren rasped. "Finish the tower." "Forget the tower," Liam said, kneeling beside him. "We need to get you to the medbay." "There is no medbay left." The alien's eyes, deep gold, fierce even now, fixed on him. "Do as I say." Liam hesitated, then gritted his teeth and turned back to the conduit. He jammed a bypass cable into the main power line, welding it with a burst of heat. The panel screamed in protest, then the lights along the wall flickered to life. The pulse cannons above the trench hummed, their barrels glowing. Thal'ren smiled faintly. "Good, you humans always find a way to break the impossible." Before Liam could answer, the eastern horizon erupted in blue light. The cannons fired in sequence, tearing through the advancing Vraek swarm. For a moment, just a moment, the enemy line broke. Then came the sound that chilled everyone. The heavy metallic screech of something enormous. A Vraek siege walker emerged from the smoke, its legs crushing the ruins beneath it, its weapons glowing with annihilation fire. Thal'ren struggled to his feet, grabbing his sword. "I will hold it. You can barely stand." "Then I will fall standing," the general snarled. He charged. Liam shouted after him, but it was useless. The alien warrior hurled himself into the firestorm. Plasma cannons roared. The walker's main gun lit up, and the world vanished in light. When Liam's hearing returned, all he could make out were smoldering wrecks, and the broken shape of Thal'ren lying among them. He ran forward, dropping beside the fallen general. Thal'ren's chest armor was shattered, his breath shallow. The Kadar's hand trembled as he pulled a small crystalline object from his armor. A command crystal, glowing faintly. He pressed it into Liam's hand. "Listen, human," he whispered. "This crystal carries command codes for the Dominion's defense grid. You must finish what I began. You must protect this world." Liam shook his head. "You're the commander. Your soldiers—" "My soldiers are dead," Thal'ren said quietly. "But my machines, they still obey." He coughed, a deep, rattling sound. Then, with the last of his strength, he reached up and pressed his palm to the side of his helmet, activating the fortress's AI core link. "This is General Thal'ren Vakor, commander of the Dominion's last host," he said, his voice echoing through every remaining comm channel. "To all automated units under my command, execute final directive." The fortress AI responded, its cold voice filling the ruins. Awaiting directive. Thal'ren's hand tightened weakly on Liam's. His golden eyes never left the human's face. Protect the human. The general's breath left him in a long exhale. His eyes dimmed. The comm channels went silent. Then, one by one, the towering war machines across the battlefield turned. Their optics glowed red, then shifted to blue, focused on Liam Cross. They had received the order, and now they obeyed only him. The air was still for the first time in hours. The thunder of plasma fire had faded to a low hum, punctuated only by the crackle of distant flames. Liam knelt beside Thal'ren's body, his pulse pounding in his ears. Around him, the battlefield stretched in every direction. Metal husks, shattered walls, and the faint glow of molten glass where plasma bolts had struck. He didn't move for a long time. The crystal in his hand pulsed softly, a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. He didn't know what to do with it. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He wasn't Kadar. He was just a stranded human engineer who'd tried to help and now held the command codes of an alien general. Then he felt it. A vibration through the ground. He turned his head and froze. From the smoke, one of the Dominion's colossal war automatons emerged, 3 stories tall, its armor blackened but intact. Its optics burned with cold blue light. It came to a stop a few meters away, lowering itself on jointed legs with a hiss of hydraulics. For a moment, Liam thought it was about to finish him off. Instead, it knelt. The ground trembled as it went down on one knee, its massive cannon arm folded inward, as if in salute. Then another mech approached, and another. Within minutes, 6 of them surrounded him in a half-circle, silent, motionless, waiting. Liam's throat went dry. "You've got to be kidding me," he whispered. One of the mechs emitted a burst of static followed by a synthesized voice. Command recognized, directive active, awaiting human input. He glanced down at the crystal. It glowed brighter now, pulsing in sync with the machines. Somehow the general's final order had been imprinted into the network, and transferred command to whoever held the crystal. And that was him. He rose slowly, looking around at the towering machines. "You're waiting for orders?" "Affirmative," the voice said. "Primary objective, protect the human." Liam rubbed his face. "Right, protect the human. Well, the human's about to get vaporized if we don't fix that shield grid." The machines did not respond verbally, but one of them turned toward the ruined fortress, scanning. Its chest compartment opened, releasing a swarm of small repair drones that buzzed into the air like silver bees. They began patching cables and sealing cracks in the fortress wall. Liam blinked. "Well, that's convenient." He jogged toward the command center, the machines following like silent titans. The surviving Kadar soldiers inside froze when they saw the mechs outside bowing their heads to a lone human. One of them, an officer with a torn crest on his armor, pointed his plasma blade at Liam. "What have you done?" the alien hissed. "Those units answer only to General Thal'ren." Liam raised his hands. "Yeah, about that. The general's gone. He gave me this." He held up the glowing crystal. "He said to finish what he started." The officer's eyes widened, his crest flattened in disbelief. "That cannot be. No alien would give a human the command codes. Check the machines outside if you don't believe me." The officer hesitated. Outside, one of the war automatons turned its head, scanning the room. When its sensors locked onto Liam, it emitted a low harmonic tone, something like a growl of recognition. The Kadar soldiers slowly lowered their weapons. Another younger alien stepped forward. "The general's last order was heard across all frequencies," he said quietly. "We thought it was a malfunction, but if it's true, then we are bound by his word." Liam swallowed hard. He'd seen enough of Kadar culture to know what that meant. Orders from a commander, especially a dying one, were sacred. Even death couldn't nullify them. The officer gave a curt nod. "Then we serve the human." Liam wanted to laugh or maybe cry. "Right, okay. Then listen up. The Vraek will regroup in under an hour. We need the power grid online, the shield network stable, and every working weapon pointed at that valley." The Kadar moved instantly, shouting commands in their harsh guttural language. The fortress buzzed back to life, drones zipping overhead, machines stomping through rubble, soldiers running to stations. Liam worked beside them, climbing into a maintenance pit to reroute plasma conduits. The alien systems were decades ahead of human tech, but after weeks of surviving among them, he'd learned enough to improvise. His fingers were bleeding by the time he sealed the last connection, but the grid hummed back online with a low, steady tone. Outside, the shimmering barrier of the planetary shield began to rise again, enveloping the fortress in a dome of light. He leaned against the console, breathing hard. "That's it, that's something." The younger Kadar from earlier appeared beside him. "Human," he said. "You fight like one of us." Liam managed a tired grin. "That's probably the nicest thing anyone said to me here." The alien tilted his head. "I am Tarek, 3rd Division of the Thal'ren host. I will follow your command." Liam looked at him, seeing not just another soldier, but someone who'd lost his entire world and still stood ready to fight. "Then let's make sure it wasn't for nothing." Moments later, a warning siren echoed through the fortress. The scanners showed movement, hundreds of signals lighting up across the valley. The Vraek were returning. Liam sprinted to the command balcony. Below, the machines were already forming a defensive line, their blue optics glowing in the darkness. The sky was a sheet of ash and lightning. He activated the fortress loudspeaker. "All units, this is Captain Cross. Hold your positions and prepare to fire on my mark." A silence fell across the ruined city. The only sound was the low hum of energy weapons charging. Then the horizon erupted. The Vraek swarm poured forward, endless silver bodies moving as one, their metallic chittering echoing across the plains. Plasma bolts lit the sky as they opened fire. "Targeting protocols active," one of the mechs said in its calm mechanical tone. "Awaiting your command." Liam clenched his jaw, staring into the approaching storm. "Fire!" The night exploded into light. Hundreds of Dominion cannons and mechs unleashed their fury. Blue plasma rained across the valley, vaporizing the first waves of Vraek. The machines moved with precision, their targeting flawless, their coordination perfect. But more came, always more. Liam ran along the battlements shouting orders, adjusting shield frequencies, rerouting energy from damaged sectors. The Kadar soldiers fought beside their machines, blades flashing. For hours the battle raged. The ground itself seemed to scream, and yet something strange began to happen. The alien soldiers, who had once barely spoken to him, now followed his orders without question. The mechs adjusted to his strategies instantly. Together, they began to push the Vraek back. Liam barely noticed when Tarek appeared beside him, his armor scorched, his crest stained with blood. "You lead like Thal'ren," Tarek said. "No, you lead like a human, different, unpredictable." Liam wiped sweat from his brow. "I'll take that as a compliment." Tarek nodded slowly. "The general's spirit walks with you. Maybe his order wasn't madness after all." Outside, the war machines unleashed another barrage, forming a perfect line of fire that split the Vraek swarm in half. The mechanical tide faltered for the first time, and above it all, as the dawn broke over the ruined horizon, the Kadar soldiers began to chant. It started as a whisper, a single phrase passed from one warrior to the next, until the sound filled the air like thunder. "Protect the human." Liam looked out at the battlefield, at the army that was no longer just alien or machine, but something new, something united, and for the first time since the war began, he believed they might actually survive. When dawn broke over Vathros Prime, it revealed a landscape that looked more like a scar than a planet. The sky was still bruised with smoke, and the ash of melted metal drifted like snow. But within the ruined fortress, for the first time in months, there was a fragile calm. Liam stood on the outer wall, staring at the valley below. The Vraek swarm had retreated. Beyond the ridgeline, leaving behind a sea of shattered drones and burned-out husks. The Dominion's machines, his machines now, stood silent, smoke rising from their cooling vents. The Kadar soldiers moved between them like ants among giants, collecting the wounded, extinguishing fires, rebuilding barricades. He could barely believe they were still alive. Beside him, Tarek adjusted the power cell on his plasma rifle. The younger Kadar's crest was singed, his scales blackened, but his eyes were steady. "They will return," he said quietly. "They always do." Liam nodded. "Yeah, and next time they won't make the same mistake." He leaned over the wall, watching the horizon. Somewhere out there, deep beneath the scorched mountains, the Vraek were rebuilding too, regrowing their forces, recalibrating their swarm intelligence. They didn't know how to surrender. They didn't know fear, but they could be baited. He turned back toward the fortress interior, his mind already racing. "We can't just sit here waiting. We need to hit them where it hurts. Disrupt their hive link." Tarek frowned. "Their link cannot be broken. It is machine thought, beyond interference." "Maybe not for Kadar tech," Liam said. "But human tech is Messier." He smirked. "Unpredictable. And that's exactly what the Vraek can't process." Tarek tilted his head. "Explain." Liam pointed toward the command spire. "That tower still has a working signal array. If we rig it to pulse random data bursts on every frequency the Vraek use, we might throw off their coordination long enough to draw them in. And when they do," he trailed off, glancing at the mechs below, "we turn the fortress into a trap." Tarek's crest rippled in surprise. "A trap that could destroy us as well." "Yeah," Liam said, picking up a data pad. "But if it works, it'll destroy them first." They spent the next 6 hours working without rest. The Kadar engineers, those who still lived, watched Liam's methods with cautious disbelief. Human tools looked primitive compared to Dominion precision, but the human way of bending broken parts into new purposes fascinated them. He converted the fortress's damaged fusion reactors into massive electromagnetic amplifiers. He turned broken defense drones into signal emitters, scattered like breadcrumbs across the valley. The war machines dug trenches and reconnected power nodes, their movements perfectly synchronized. When night came, the fortress glowed again, alive with blue energy. Tariq approached as Liam tightened the final conduit clamp. "If this fails," he said, "we will have no shield, no power, and no chance." Liam wiped sweat from his brow. That's usually when humans do their best work. The Kadar gave a low, rumbling laugh, the first Liam had ever heard from one. "You were either brave or insane." "Probably both." He climbed the command dais holding the crystal. It pulsed faintly, linked to the entire defense network. The alien machines shifted their gaze toward him, awaiting his signal. The Kadar soldiers stood ready along the walls, blades drawn, eyes fixed on the horizon. Liam took a deep breath. "Let's wake them up." He slammed his hand down on the console. A shockwave of electromagnetic noise rippled outward from the fortress. Across the valley, broken drones twitched. Buried Vraek emitters flared to life, their circuits overloaded. Static filled the air like the sound of 1,000 angry insects. Then the ground began to tremble. "They are coming," Tariq hissed. The first Vraek scouts appeared, small skittering machines shaped like spiders. Then the swarm poured over the ridge, 10,000 silver bodies reflecting the light of the fortress. In their center marched something new, towering quadrupedal siege constructs, bristling with energy cannons. The Vraek had adapted. "Status?" Liam called. "Power cells at 80%, a Kadar officer reported. "Shield grid holding, outer perimeter charged." Liam's eyes darted between displays. The Vraek were moving faster than expected. No hesitation, no confusion. The pulse had worked for only a moment. Then they'd adjusted. "Come on," he muttered. "Take the bait." As if hearing him, the swarm converged on the fortress. "Now," he said quietly. At his signal, the mechs unleashed hell. Plasma fire tore through the front ranks of the Vraek, disintegrating hundreds in seconds. Energy mines hidden in the trenches detonated in waves, sending molten shards skyward. The valley became a sea of flame. But the swarm did not stop. The siege constructs raised their cannons, firing beams that sliced through the shield like knives through glass. The barrier flickered, then steadied. Liam rerouted energy manually, his hands flying across the controls. "Tariq, deploy units 3 and 5 to the western flank," he shouted. "Don't let them circle around." The Kadar commander barked orders in his harsh native tongue. Soldiers and machines surged toward the left wall, meeting the swarm head-on. The sound was like thunder on metal. Liam's mind worked faster than it ever had before. Every system, every circuit, every alien line of code, he could see how it fit together, how it could be bent to his will. He rerouted energy from weapon systems into the outer walls, turning them into giant capacitors. When the Vraek reached the walls, he triggered the discharge. A blinding surge of electricity erupted outward, incinerating hundreds of machines at once. The shockwave flattened the entire front line. The Kadar cheered as the valley lit up like a sunrise of fire. But then, through the haze, a shadow moved. The largest siege construct, a towering behemoth of chrome and fire, was still advancing. Its body was cracked, molten lines glowing across its armor. But it did not stop. Its central core pulsed with the same eerie rhythm as the Vraek hive link. Tariq's voice broke through the comms. "It's targeting the power reactors." Liam's heart froze. If the construct reached the fortress, the entire defense grid would explode. He turned to the mechs nearest him. "All units, converge on grid point Alpha 7. Bring that thing down." The war machines roared as they charged, their footfalls shaking the earth. Plasma lances carved into the Vraek construct, but it kept moving, its return fire ripping through the Kadar lines. Liam sprinted to the lower platform, grabbing a heavy rifle from a fallen soldier. He fired into the beast's glowing core, each shot doing little more than scorching its armor. Then an idea sparked in his mind, reckless, desperate, human. He opened the fortress command relay and rerouted all reactor energy into the tower's main emitter, the same one that had broadcast the signal pulse. It began to hum dangerously, red lights flashing warnings. Tarek shouted from below, "You'll overload the core." "Exactly," Liam said. "Tell everyone to fall back." He grabbed the crystal and slammed his hand on the console. "All units disengage and retreat to secondary perimeter." The mechs obeyed instantly, pulling back even as the Vraek poured forward. The massive construct reached the base of the tower, claws digging into the metal preparing to fire one last time. Liam hit the final sequence. "Let's see how you like a taste of chaos." The tower erupted. A pulse of raw energy exploded outward in a sphere of light so bright it turned night into day. Every machine in its path froze mid-motion, their circuits overwhelmed by the feedback. The siege construct convulsed, its armor splitting apart, then collapsed in on itself. When the light faded, silence fell over the battlefield. Liam stood at the center of it all, smoke curling around him. The fortress was half destroyed, the towers burning, but the swarm was gone. The Vraek had been annihilated. Tarek limped up beside him, his armor cracked. "It worked," he said softly. Liam nodded, barely able to breathe. "Yeah, for now." He looked out over the horizon which, ashes of the Vraek, shimmered under the rising sun. The machines behind him, those still functional, turned to face him and lowered their heads again. Across the fortress, the chant rose once more, carried by Kadar voices that were hoarse but unbroken. "Protect the human." And Liam Cross, the stranded engineer, the last link in a dying empire, realized the general's final order had done more than save one life. It had united two worlds. 2 days passed in uneasy quiet. The fortress stood like a wounded beast, its towers scarred and half-melted, its walls patched with scavenged metal. Smoke drifted endlessly into the burnt-orange sky. Liam had barely slept. Every moment was spent in the command spire, rebuilding systems, recalibrating weapon lines, and repairing what the explosion had spared. The Kadar soldiers moved silently now, not broken but solemn. They all knew the quiet wouldn't last, because silence, on Vathros Prime, meant the Vraek were thinking. Tarek entered the command chamber, his armor still cracked, a bandage running across his scaled shoulder. "Recon drones have returned," he said quietly. "You should see this." Liam followed him to the viewing platform, far across the valley, beyond the mountain ridges where the swarm had retreated. A storm of black clouds twisted in a spiral. At its center glowed a pulsing orb of red light, massive, mechanical, and wrong. Liam's stomach dropped. "That's not weather." "No," Tarek said grimly. "It is the Vraek Annihilator. A planetary weapon. We believed only the Central Hive could command such things." Liam's eyes widened. "They've rebuilt a hive core here." The Kadar nodded. "They will burn the planet to glass before surrendering." For a long moment neither spoke. The hum of damaged power lines filled the silence. Finally Liam whispered, "Then we hit them first." Tarek looked at him sharply. "We have nothing left to hit them with. Our reactors are at 30% and our machines—" "Still follow the general's order," Liam interrupted. He turned, pointing toward the mechs gathered in the courtyard below, dozens of them, blackened, scarred, but standing. "If we move now before they fire that weapon, we might have a chance to destroy the core." Tarek hesitated. "It would be suicide." "Probably." Liam met his gaze. "But dying here fighting is better than waiting to burn." The Kadar's crest lowered in what might have been respect, or acceptance. "Then we go with you." Liam felt a flicker of something warm in his chest. These were once proud, distrustful aliens who'd barely spoken to him weeks ago. Now they were willing to die following his lead. "Prepare the machines," he said. "We move at dusk." As the twin suns set behind the ridges, the army of the last Dominion marched for the final time. The ground shook under the synchronized steps of the war mechs. Kadar soldiers moved in formation around them, their armor glowing faintly with bioluminescent veins. At their center walked Liam Cross, his human frame dwarfed by the titans around him, the command crystal glowing at his chest like a heartbeat. They advanced through canyons of melted glass and fields of ash, following the signal of the Vraek core pulsing through the air like a drumbeat. When they reached the outer rim of the crater, Liam saw it fully for the first time. The hive core towered above the land like a living storm. Miles of black machinery spiraling upward, tendrils burrowing deep into the earth, drawing power from the planet's crust. Lightning crawled across its surface, feeding the giant red orb suspended at its crown. "That's it," Liam said softly. "That's their heart." "And we are its infection," Tarek said, drawing his blade. Liam nodded. "Let's remind them humans are hard to kill." He raised the crystal. The mech's optics flared blue. "All units," Liam said through the comms, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "Target the core and advance. Give them everything you've got." The battlefield erupted. The Kadar roared their war cries as plasma fire filled the night. The first lines of Vraek defenses, walls of gunmetal machines fused together into living barricades, shattered under the barrage. Explosions rolled through the valley, painting the sky in white fire. Liam moved with the forward teams shouting orders, adjusting targeting algorithms on the fly. The mechs responded instantly, shifting formations with impossible precision. The Vraek poured out from the hive like a tidal wave, clawed and shrieking, metallic bodies reflecting the chaos of war. Every second was a blur of light and death. Tarek's squad cut a path through the Vraek with disciplined fury, their plasma blades slicing through steel and bone alike. One of the Kadar fell beside Liam, impaled by a drone's talon. Tarek dragged the body back, growling a battle prayer through gritted teeth. They reached the base of the hive core just as the red orb above began to glow brighter. Energy crackled through the air, lifting dust and debris into a storm. "It's charging," Tarek shouted over the comms. Liam opened the fortress link. "All mechs, focus fire on the orb. Bring it down before it fires." The ground lit up with blinding light as hundreds of plasma cannons fired in unison. Beams struck the orb, ripping through its outer shell. Cracks spiderwebbed across its surface, but it didn't stop. The Vraek swarmed faster now, desperate, throwing themselves into the barrage to shield the core. Liam's console flashed red. Energy reserves at 10%. He gritted his teeth. "We're not done yet." He looked up at the mechs surrounding him, half of them damaged, one missing an entire arm. They still waited for his command. They would follow him anywhere. He realized then what Thal'ren had seen in him. Humanity wasn't stronger or smarter or faster. But humans never stopped trying, even when the universe told them they'd already lost. "Tarek," he said, "get your men back. I'm going in." The Kadar's eyes widened. "Into the hive? That's madness." "I built the overload system for the fortress grid. I can do it again if I reach the core's power link. I can blow this thing from the inside." Tarek grabbed his arm. "You won't come back." Liam smiled faintly. "Then make sure it means something." Without waiting for an answer, he sprinted toward the hive's base. The mechs moved automatically, closing ranks around him, cutting through Vraek drones like scythes through wheat. Sparks and smoke filled the air. Liam ducked under collapsing metal, heat searing his skin, until he reached the central power conduit, a glowing spine of energy running up the hive's length. He connected the command crystal to the conduit's access port. Alien code flooded his screen, streams of unreadable symbols flickering. He couldn't read it, but he understood enough to see what he had to do. He began rerouting the energy flow, pushing the core toward overload. The hive responded instantly, systems fighting back, locking him out. The console burned under his hands, but he didn't stop. Outside, Tarek's voice came through the comms, strained and desperate. "Cross, the core, it's destabilizing, you must leave now." "Not yet," Liam whispered. He slammed his hand down, overriding the failsafes. The crystal flared white-hot, fusing to the panel. The hive screamed, a sound like tearing metal and dying stars. "Now," Liam said softly. "Protect the human." The mechs outside responded with a unified roar, charging into the swarm to cover his position. Plasma fire and explosions merged into a single blinding storm. Tarek saw the human silhouette vanish behind a wave of light. And then the hive exploded. A column of fire ripped through the sky, vaporizing everything within miles. The shockwave flattened mountains, scattering debris into orbit. For a heartbeat, all of Vathros Prime glowed as bright as a sun. When the light faded, there was nothing left of the high. Only a crater miles wide and the ruins of war machines still standing, motionless like statues. Hours later, when the ash finally settled, Tarek climbed the ridge overlooking the battlefield. The mechs were still there, dozens of them, scorched, broken but upright. Their optics glowed faintly blue, scanning the empty horizon. He approached the largest one and placed a hand on its armor. "He is gone," he said quietly. The mech's voice was faint, distorted. "Directive unchanged." Tarek looked up. "What directive?" The machine's optics dimmed. "And because of that we lived. Our children learned mercy. Our fleets learned restraint. Our wars became rare, and our pride found purpose. That is why even now, 3 centuries later, every Kadar child learns the same words first." He straightened his back and recited in his deep, gravelly voice. "Honor is not born of blood, but of choice. Protect those who cannot protect themselves, for that is what the human did." Aaron looked up at the hologram, his heart beating faster. Did they ever find proof that he commanded the machines? The elder chuckled softly. "Proof? Young one, the mechs still stand. They do not move, they do not speak, but if you stand near them long enough and you listen closely on the wind, you might still hear their hum." He leaned closer, his voice lowering. "And sometimes when the twin suns set on that dead world, their optics light again.